And just like that, we're alive again. Day 3, May 3rd, 2024. Good morning to everybody. And hey, listen, because I know that some of you may come across this later, whatever time it is. How you doing? Listen, we are excited to have our chance once again every day this month to come and to help empower each of us, whosoever will, to be able to unlock your full potential. Man, you are God's idea, and he did a big one when he created you. There is not another you, never have been, never will be. And the only way that this world is going to know all that God has put in you is when you decide that you're going to live life in your full potential and no longer stay hostage to who you've been at the expense of who you can become. Man, good morning. My name is Toderick Miller, and I've committed to over the next 30 days to help as many people as I can, myself included, to unlock our full potential. And I believe that through these moments that we are challenged to ask the right questions, to challenge our limiting beliefs, and to be able to delve into and dive into our inner world to understand, why am I like this? And once we have that self-awareness on this empowering and enlightening journey of self-discovery, you will then be more, because before you can do more, you must first be more. And so that's the goal. Our goal is to help us all be more. And I want to go on record by saying you are more. Man, I know that sometimes we use things because they're cliche. Sometimes we use things because they're popular, but there is so much truth in this very statement that you are alive because there is more. And you are alive for such a time as this. And man, God created you and he caused you to be alive. I have the gift of wonder. And so sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if God would have caused me to be born in a different time, right? But because I'm here now in the time that I'm in, I want to be like David, and I want to serve. I want to serve this generation. And so part of the reasons why I'm getting up every day and coming into this circle, and I'm doing what I'm doing, is because of that very reason, to serve this present generation. And I say all the time, hey, good morning, Corey. I say all the time, I don't know everything, but I am willing to teach you everything that I know. I'm willing to share what I know. And so, listen, I want to get right into our time together today. And may I ask you a question? Sure, right? What are you currently choosing for your life? In yesterday's conversation, I talked about how many times most of us, we live life being present for everyone else. If you're a parent, you're being present for the children. If you're married, you're being present for the spouse, right? You're employed, you're being present, for the job. You're in ministry, you're being present for the people, right? And all of those things are great, because a part of our assignment is to be salt and light. It is to be fruit, right? It is to bear much fruit, right? And the price that you being picked on is the price that you pay for having fruit, right? And at the end of the day, we can only be as good to people as we have been present for ourselves. And so if you are not present for you, then you cannot really be a valuable presence for anyone else. And so then sometimes we go from being present to just just being around. And truth of the matter is, I mean, what's at stake right now, it's too great for us to just have casual company, but we need some carrying company. What do I mean by that? Carrying company means that we need people around us who are goal oriented. We need people around us who are competent in what they do, so that they're not trying to compete with you, and so that they're not feeling some type of way when you're succeeding, and they're celebrating your success even if they're not in a winning season themselves. So we got to have people around us as such, but it requires that we also remember that I've got to be present for me. I've got to show up for me. I've got to hold me accountable to me. And for the people who will gravitate to our times together this month, I am giving an offer to help you as I help myself at the same time. But I'm also, because I know, and Corey, you're the one. I told Corey some months ago, I was like, Corey, I'm an enabler. And he was like, why would you say that? And I'm like, Corey, not that kind of enabler. I am the person who helps enable those who need, watch this. A lot of people talk about accountability partners. I've decided for those who will, I'm going to help. I'm going to be your achievability partner. I'm going to help you achieve. There are some people who need to set goals. There are some people who need to set measurable goals. There are some people who need to go back and set some realistic goals. Then there are some people who say, my goals are tight. I just now need the strategy to make those goals achievable, whichever place and whichever category you're in. I'm that enabler. And so I'm here as a part of this entire conversation to tell us this, that whatever becomes of today is pretty much the sum of a decision that you made yesterday. And whatever we're choosing is what we are creating. And so my question to us today, Marcus Harris, my question to us today is, what are you choosing? There's a scripture in Deuteronomy. I'm a preacher, so you know I got I got scripture. Deuteronomy 30:19 says, hey, listen, this day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you. God says that he tells his people, I have set before you life and death, blessing and curses. And then he says this, now choose life. Dr. Redmond, he says, listen, I heard it like this, man, choose life. Both of them are right there in front of you. And sometimes because of your nature, you will choose what you should not choose. But it's the love of the Father who says, hey, I see you eyeballing that, but let me help you make a conscious decision to make the right choice. He says, now choose life, that you and your children may live. It's a choice, man. I want you to understand that the difference between where you are and where you desire to go is a choice. It's a choice to even have a desire for more. It's a choice to even have a desire to be more. It's a choice. I tell people all the time, I'm married by choice. I stay married every day. It's a choice to stay married. Every day, it's a choice to love. Love is a choice. Hate is a choice. Joy is a choice. Being angry is a choice. Wherever you are, whatever you're choosing, it's your choice. And so what I want to talk to us today about is taking responsibility. On day one, I made the reference to the word responsibility, and I break the word responsibility down to meaning your response or how you respond to your ability. Responsibility is how you respond to your ability. And so in yesterday's conversation, when we talked about fear versus faith and how fear says, what if? But then faith comes back and says, even if, right? Fear says, what if they don't? But faith says, even if they don't. Fear says, what if I don't? But faith comes back and says, but even if I don't, He will, right? And so when you come into that mindset, you now know that you can't always control what happens to you, but we do have the power and the ability to control how we respond to it. Sometimes you can't control an idiot being an idiot, but you can control how you respond. Hello. You can control exactly to it. And the word that we are after today is that we take responsibility for our own lives. You take responsibility for your own life, and your results, hear me now, are your responsibility. I said your results or your responsibility. May I ask you a question? What are you choosing right now? Are you choosing to decide your destiny? Are you choosing just to sit there in your doubts? I mean, are you choosing faith or are you choosing fear? Are you choosing to get up? Or are you just choosing to lay there for 38 years and wait on somebody else to come who's never going to come, because it's a every man for himself kind of world that you're living in, and another sick man is not going to help you because he's just as sick as you are. Are you going to just sit there? Are you choosing to stay stuck? Are you choosing to make the fear of being in the same place this time next week, next month, next year motivation for you to get up and make it happen? Because it's not just a saying, it's an actual quote. William Johnson says, if it's to be, then it is in fact up to me. So I want to give us today, I want to give us 4 ways to help take responsibility for your own life. Here's how you and I both can take life into our own hands. And I know I'm saying it every day, because when we start talking about this, and I know the church, I know the church, I know in the church world, sometimes we excuse our own personal responsibility because, oh well, it's God's. Yeah, but remember, Proverbs says God told us to commit our plans to him and that he would establish them. And so it does not take away our personal responsibility. God is not opposed to you having a plan. He is opposed, or he does teach against you having plans without having consulted and including him, right? Because he gives us the ability to make choices. And I want to give it. I'm going to give it to you. I got to go. Hey, Travis, good to see you, man. Number one, in order to be able to take life into your hands and be fully responsible for it, it's going to require you, number one, stop blaming. You blaming everybody and anybody you can, when at the end of the day, you are the one who is responsible for your own results. Now, I do get it that sometimes there were things that happen in our lives that it wasn't your fault. But can I tell you today, it may not have been your fault, but it's got to be your fix. Did you hear me? It may not have been your fault, but it's definitely going to have to be your fix. If it's going to be fixed, you're going to have to do it, even if it was not your fault. We got to get away from playing the blame game, and we got to get away from it, because the longer you're blaming, the longer you're holding yourself hostage to what someone else did. And yet, I get it, they did it. I get it, they said it. I get it. I get it. They violated you. I get it. They went way further than you thought they would go. I get it. The very person who you never expected to do what they did it. I get it. But we cannot blame. We have to turn around and say, you know what? I've got to learn how to, here's how that works. Make your explanation greater than the experience. Make your explanation greater than the experience. I know the experience wasn't, it was an unhappy experience. I get that. And I pray that you heal from that. And a part of the process of the journey towards your own healing is when you stop blaming the other person and stop blaming yourself. Forgive yourself for what you did not know. You didn't know how crazy they were until you got into it. Sometimes they're not red flags. Sometimes there were no signals. Sometimes there are no indicators. But you have to understand that you cannot blame them and you cannot blame you. You've just got to make your explanation greater than the experience and say to yourself, it may not have been my fault, but it is my fix. I need to tell somebody. If it was Sunday morning, I would tell you, fix it. I would tell you, may not have broke it, but fix it. I fix it. And it doesn't always mean the thing. It does not always fix it, does not always mean fix the experience. Fix doesn't always mean fix the other person. Fix sometimes means fix your mentality, fix your emotion, fix your response. That's what you got control over. You don't have control over the experience, but you do have control over the response. So when I say fix it, that's what I'm saying. Fix your response. Sometimes just fix your face, man. You don't have to look like everything that has happened to you. Fix it. It's your response. It's your responsibility. Now, it's easy to unknowingly sometimes even fall into the trap of holding other people responsible for what happens in our lives and how we consequently feel about those things. But at the end of the day, you cannot, again, control what happens, but you can control, or here it is, you can choose how to respond. Anger is a response. Joy is a response. Happiness it's a choice. It's a response. And when we start taking control of our own lives and taking full responsibility, I say all the time, I'm responsible for my own happiness. My wife is not responsible to make me happy. Nobody else is. I'm responsible for my own happiness, because he who angers you can control you. Whatever you place into someone else's hands, it then becomes their puppet show. And they can make, the same person who can make you mad can make you glad. And the same person who can make you happy can make you sad. And so I'd rather just leave my life in my own responsibility and stop blaming. Number two, stop complaining. There were some of us who have this, this pet peeve. You do not like being around complainers. Like, I don't, if there's anything I don't like, I just don't like being around a complainer or a nagger. But let me tell you, have you ever just stopped and listened to your own self? Sometimes you are the biggest complainer in your own life. Stop complaining, because complaints don't create anything but more grief associated with whatever the thing that we are complaining about. And the truth of the matter is, much of our complaining turns into us just trying to justify our own negative emotions. And then when you start talking about responsibility, you have to understand this. If you stop long enough to listen to yourself, you may discover that the same energy it takes to complain could be applied to identifying a healthy thought pattern that is more appropriate for a response of a responsible person. An irresponsible person says they shouldn't have did me like that. A responsible person says, now I know. An irresponsible person says, they just, they just don't like me. But a responsible person says, I didn't come to be liked in the first place. I came to live. Who you trying to be liked? And God just says, live. An irresponsible person takes everything negative that has happened to them and lets that become the reason why they're stagnant and stuck. But a responsible person says, I cannot stop. I can't stop at what happened, but I have to start creating what else is going to happen. You stop complaining, and it takes just as much energy to identify a more healthier thought pattern. That's the switch. That's the habit switch. The next time you find yourself complaining, stop yourself. Nobody else is going to stop you. Stop yourself right in your tracks and recount and go back and identify a better response. If you don't respond better, then you're not taking responsibility. Then you got to do this. We got to stop making excuses. We got to stop making excuses. And may I ask you another question? What excuses are you hiding behind right now? Because as we start taking these self assessments, and as we start diving into our own inner world, there's some disconnects, right? When there's some delays, right? There's some detours, right? And where you are and versus where you want to be. Don't look the same right now, and what you have versus what you would like to have, it doesn't look the same. Whatever the case may be, you got goals, but you're not going after the goals, right? But at the end of when you come back, ask yourself, am I hiding behind an excuse? Is an excuse the reason why I haven't started heading in the direction of the life that I say I desire? Is an excuse is where I was raised an excuse I'm hiding behind? Is the two people that God used to bring me into this world an excuse that I'm hiding behind? I got to stay there for just a second, because sometimes grown people are still hiding behind the excuse of what their parents did or did not do when they were a child. And it is at a certain point in your life that you have to stop playing the blame and complain game. And you've got to start realizing that I'm now at the age where those experiences, regardless to how real they are, here's what you now have to take responsibility and do. You have to now say, it's my responsibility to unlearn any behavior that is holding me back from being my best self. It's my responsibility to unlearn. That's a big word, because we've learned how to blame. We've learned how to complain. But now we have to learn how to become, and we have to learn how to create. You got to learn it, right? Fear is natural. Learning how to function with the fear, not in fear, but with the fear, it has to be nurtured, right? And so we have to, at some point in our lives, become responsible for our responses and unlearn any behavior that's literally holding you back from being your best self. No more complaining, no more blaming, and then no more excuses. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to live in an excuse, to hide behind excuse. And when you start going after this life, when you start creating and you start actually caring, and when you start actually headed in the direction of a better version of yourself, you'll have to ask yourself, what excuse have I been hiding behind? Listen, it's not about credentials. Sometimes it's just about what you create. Some of the most brilliant minds in the world don't have degrees, but man, they do the doggone thing, man. Let me tell you, if degrees are your thing, man, keep going. But if that's not your thing, don't let what somebody else is into make you never get into what you are into, man. I'm telling you, get rid of the excuses. The excuses will say, man, I don't have no time. Well, yeah, we all got the same amount of time, the same 24 hours in a day. If you really want it, then you'll carve out some time. If you really want it, you go from excuses to effort. Excuses say, I don't have enough time. Effort says, well, let me figure out what I can eliminate. Let me figure out where I've been wasting time. Let me figure out the time that I was on social media. I could have been strategizing choosing for the life that I say I want. But if I just keep wanting and wishing and never working, then I'm living in excuse versus living in effort. And then lastly, just stop overthinking, please. Would you please do yourself a favor and just stop overthinking it? Sometimes we're overthinking it to the extent that we're caring more about what people say than what we ourselves say. Sometimes sometimes the struggle gets so real that it seems like everybody else's idea of you is controlling what you do versus your idea of you controlling what you do. But when you have a mindset that says, I am responsible, my results are my responsibility, then you have to stop overthinking, and you have to go from the what if to the even if. And I believe that when we do this, we understand the quote by Brian Tracy, who says, it's not what happens to you, but it's how you respond to what happens that determines whether you're happy or unhappy. It determines my results are my responsibility. Whatever happens to me, it may not have been my fault, but it is my fix. And I'm learning how to make my explanation greater than my experience, because I can't always control what happens, but I can control. I do have a choice over how I respond to what happens. So what are you choosing? Same way in Deuteronomy, God says, hey, I've set in front of you life and death. Are you choosing life or are you choosing death? And don't overthink this and go all the way to physical death. But some of us have chosen death of our dreams. Overthinking has killed some of your greatest ideas. Overthinking has detoured some of us from our destiny. But we've got to take responsibility and ask God, what are you choosing? Stop choosing death. And he literally says, choose life, please. If you go, please, whatever you do, choose life. And that's my challenge to us today, as we are on this journey this month to unlocking our full potential. Choose your potential over your pain. Yes, choose. It's a choice. Whatever happens, it's going to be the byproduct of the choice that you make. Nobody else can do it for you. You got to do it for yourself, because if it's going to be, it's going to be up to me. All right, that's it today. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for those of you who are sharing. I got to get this together. But for those of you who are sharing with us the impact of this live stream series, thank you for the feedback. And for those of you who are sharing and helping amplify the message, thank you so much. And for those of you who decide to help and partner with us to increase our reach by giving, thank you so much as well for doing so. Whatever you do, do it and commit it unto God. And we're believing, according to his word, that he's going to establish it. But you've got to first, you got to make the choice and take responsibility for your own life. All right. That's it. I'm done and I'm gone. Marcus Harris, thank you for being on. Frank Craig, thank you for being on. Redmond, thank you for being on. Corey, my guy, hope you're feeling better. Thank you for being on. Everybody else who was on, whose names I did not see or miss, thank you so much for being on. And hey, listen, we'll see you tomorrow. And I'll have another question. Because sometimes when you ask the right questions, you find that you're already the answer.